And I have kind of a long history with AI back to one of my first jobs at Bell Laboratories. So, it's an area of fascination for me, and read a couple books. Like Nick Bostrom, one of the founders of simulation theory, he has an awesome book on superintelligence, I think it's called, which kind of outlines the specter of possible AI apocalypse, and got me thinking about that, and doing some more research on it. And I made a presentation at Contact in the Desert conference last year on surviving the AI apocalypse. So, yeah, a little bit of a side tangent for me.
So when we first started talking, you and I, when we first met, and I think The Universe Solved came out, what, about 2012?
2008.
2008. 2008. My lord. So we've known each other for 16 years, maybe 15, 16 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we were talking about, the simulation theory and so forth, I mean, AI was around. We used to call it machine learning. But since then, I mean, it's just ramped up. I mean, it's coming at us so quickly. It's almost scary. When you now see the speed at the development of AI, and you look back at the work that you did on The Universe Solved and talking about the simulation, I mean, does this just further sort of solidify your theory that we are living in a matrix?
Yeah, I think it does. It's another, one of those, elements that kind of indicates that theory is probably more than a theory. It's probably reality. And just the whole concept of AI, if we're living in a simulation, it's essentially an AI behind it. And it also puts into the realm of possibility the idea that there could be, quote, AI bots out there. And I think we may talk about that a little bit more as we go on with the program. But, sort of autonomous programs, if you think of Agent Smith in The Matrix, he was an AI bot. Do we have those kinds of things in our reality, UFOs perhaps, or other entities that maintain some control of reality or keep reality from, going crazy, going off the rails? And there seems to be some evidence that might be the case. So, AI intersects the simulation theory in a lot of different ways.
I kind of swing wildly back and forth between absolutely dreading artificial intelligence and what it might mean for humanity, to kind of maybe taking a step back, getting off the ledge, as it were, and thinking, okay, as long as it's tethered to a human being, it can be a pretty cool creative tool. I mean, I like some of the things that are happening musically with AI. That Beatles tune Now and Then, where they were able to use AI to separate John Lennon's vocal track from the piano track and so forth, and people are kind of creating their own Beatles sounding music with AI. That's kind of cool. I mean, there are some copyright issues there, and that there's going to give rise probably to a whole new area of law, for AI and so forth. Where are you at with AI? Are you fearful of it? Are you accepting of it? What are your thoughts?
All of the above, just like you, same kind of thing. There's a lot of exciting stuff. In fact, I do some AI consulting with other companies, and it's really a matter of using these generative AI tools like ChatGPT to accelerate your business. For example, people do brainstorming sessions all the time, and if you watch a bunch of humans do brainstorming sessions, they'll go all over the place. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good, but they may miss some things. You bring ChatGPT-4 into it and feed it the right amount of information, like, here's our product vision or here's our target market. It has a language library that exceeds that of the humans in the room, and so it can come up with ideas that you might not have thought about before. So as a tool for enhancing innovation, or a tool for enhancing a message or writing or a roadmap or any of these kinds of things that companies need to do in developing products, it can be really good and really helpful. and then there's the artistic side of things. AI is fun to play with. I used AI to a tool called Midjourney to generate some images for a pitch for my book, for the novel I mentioned, and it was amazing what it came up with. I could never have done it myself. On the other hand, with a Hollywood strike and the writer's strike, one of their main issues was about possible replacement of actors and writers with AI and putting some controls on that. And I think that's a valid thing to be concerned about. I think it's valid to be worried about, the future of jobs. And people need to know whether what they're watching is real in some sense. Of course, the distinction between real and not real and being virtual is blurring all the time. But I think it's worth knowing that this was a human generated project or this was a human generated product versus an AI generated one. Why? Maybe people want to make that decision. Like people go to the store and buy organic versus non-organic food or free-range chickens or whatever. They make a choice on what it is they're buying. Maybe they should also make a choice on what kind of art they're acquiring. So yeah, all of that stuff is cool. Then there's the middle ground there, and then there's the scary side of it, which is the possibility that it could just take over. And sometimes I think people minimize that because they think, well, that's a lot of Hollywood nonsense, with the Terminator series and Skynet and The Matrix and other movies that explore those kinds of ideas. But when you start thinking about what AI can actually do, it does get really scary. And so that was the whole purpose of me putting this presentation together in the blog series, is to look at the way AI can influence our lives and cause pain for humans going forward. And are there things to do that we can do for some of those things? Which ones do we need to look out for? Which are probable and which are the most severe? And I kind of, organized it in that way of severity and likelihood.
Help us make sense of some of the terminology here. Chat GPTs, we'll get into GPT in a moment, but the AGI, ASI, narrow AI, these are terms I'm not familiar with. Let's start with AGI.
Yeah, so AGI is artificial general intelligence. And by the way, these terms, like all terms, are used freely. Some people use different terms than others, but I'd say for the most part, the things that I'll mention here are pretty consistently used. And you can think of, AI, well, does AI mean everything that a computer can do? No, not really. AI means emulation of human intelligence in some way. You could argue, well, a calculator does that because a calculator is, emulating or facilitating calculations that we would do, by paper or slide rule or something like that. But it's not really what AI is meant for. It's meant more for the logical thinking that humans do and replacing that. So if you think of the space of all software, most software is not really AI, but anything that is emulating human thinking and behavior would fall into that category. Then within AI, there are two broad categories. There's the narrow AI, which is a very specific purpose for something like a robot or your Alexa or your Siri, that's neuro-linguistic programming, also called NLP. Machine learning, machine learning is what Netflix and Spotify do to come up with recommendations for you. They look through your history of things that you viewed and things that you liked and their database of material and give you recommendations. And so that's another example of an NAI or a narrow AI. Then you have these large language models, which use a ton of data and then make decisions based on that data. You could ingest, for example, like all medical records that exist out there, and then maybe the AI could determine based on somebody's symptoms what they likely have or what would be a good prognosis for them, just as an example. So that's a broad category also. And then within that LLM are these GPTs, or and then the name escapes me, but it's a generative training program that basically puts kind of a front end on that large language model so that you can talk to it and interact with it and use that all of that data in some way. There are deep learning programs, things like the IBM program or the chess playing programs that are specifically designed for certain functions. And those are all called narrow AI because they do a narrow slice of functionality. General AI or AGI is the idea that this, those kinds of things are what are basically doing anything that a human could potentially do. And we haven't reached that point yet. Chat GPT is a narrow AI. AGI doesn't yet exist. And the big question is, when will that happen? When will we have something that is so human-like that you could ask it to do anything you would ask a human to do, and it will do it better? So that's what AGI stands for. And then ASI is sort of an extension of that, where you've evolved quickly. The AI has evolved quickly beyond the human capacity and developed some superpowers, whether it's speed or memory or the ability to influence or control things. That's where it really gets scary. That's where your Skynet and your HAL 9000 and those kinds of things that we're familiar with from movies and books and so forth. That's where they come into play. ASI. The interesting thing is that once a lot of people speculate, a lot of the experts speculate that once AI gets to an AGI point, in other words, being, quote, as smart as a human and able to do everything that a human can do, that it will very quickly evolve to ASI because of feedback loops, because of the amount of power that the computers have that our brains just don't have. And so we hit AGI at some point, let's say it's, I don't know, 10 years from now, we could hit ASI a month later or a week later. Some people even think hours later. I don't know if you saw the movie Her, but that was an interesting example of it where, the guy fell in love with his operating system.
Oh, Joaquin
And
Phoenix, yes.
Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson was the voice of the operating system. And when she got to this one point where, like, a couple days later, suddenly she had, I don't know, thousands of people that she's interacting with, and basically just got bored being an operating system for one person. And that was the example of the AGI going to ASI. So that's a scary situation because we don't know what will happen then.